just for the occasion here.
My guest today is Professor Ranjay Gulati, who is Professor of Business Administration at Harvard Business School. His latest book is How to Be Bold, The Surprising Science of Everyday Courage. Welcome, Ranjay.
Thank you so much, Gill. Pleasure to be here with you today.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. So we will go into your book in more detail, but do you want to set the context for the book? How to Be Bold. What is it? What is it about more generally?
So, the book was never really supposed to be about courage or being bold. It
Yeah,
started with an empirical puzzle, with a research study I did. And the study was published in Harvard Business Review in 2010, and
yeah,
it was looking at companies in down markets. It
right.
was really about what do companies do in down markets. And I found that a few companies actually place bets in down markets. They actually invest for growth in down markets
Yeah.
while everybody else is cutting costs. So that piqued my curiosity. What also piqued my curiosity at the time was a number of icons started to die.
Mm,
Sears, Roebuck and Company,
mm,
Kmart,
yeah.
Motorola,
Mm,
Kodak,
yeah.
in the list, Nokia. These were like mega companies. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I would, anecdotally, people would say these companies stopped taking risk. They stopped trying new things.
Right.
Um, and so that was the kind of the kernel of an idea that there's something about organizations. But then I
Mm,
started to look at individuals.
yeah.
So if I was to summarize what the book's central thesis is, three ideas. Number one, courage is not the absence of fear, it's taking action in the face of fear, right?
Right.
Number two, right, you have to understand that courage is not something you're born with, you can actually cultivate it,
Mm,
right? And number three, there are a set of practices and mindsets that people can embrace that allow them to cultivate courage
mm,
within themselves individually as well as inside organizations.
mm,
Those I would think would be, I would say, the crystallization of kind of the nuggets over here. It's an empowering message to say to everybody that you
mm,
too can be courageous.
mm.
It's never too late.
So cultivating courage as an attribute of the human being. Um, so if you look at a spectrum, I mean, we have a lot of disease spectrums nowadays. Uh, you could think about a courage spectrum. Um, yeah, maybe it's very driven by your initial conditions, your initial state, initial expectations. It pushes you to one side or the other. Um, and you become very conservative or very courageous, let's say. And so your initial conditions matter a lot in this case, right?
Absolutely. But if you look at some of the earliest research into this subject,
Yeah,
it was of British soldiers in World War II.
yeah.
In particular, they looked at bomb disposal squads and paratroopers, among the most dangerous jobs they had. Paratroopers had to parachute into Germany while people were shooting from below.
Yes.
And bomb disposal squad, you can understand, disposing of bombs is a dangerous job to begin with, right?
Yeah.
And they actually found that how these people trained up to, over time, they become more confident in doing their job
Mm,
and able to kind of overcome the fear impulse
mm,
that limits your ability to do this job. So that was kind of the earliest work. There was subsequent work by a very famous Stanford psychologist named Albert Bandura.
yeah.
And Bandura actually tried to train people. In fact, he was looking at people called aphidophobes who are paranoid about snakes.
Yeah.
And he was going to train them how to hold a snake, a big one, what is called a corn snake.
Okay.
Not just a small snake, it was a monster sized snake.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the idea here, and then I looked at the Marine Corps myself. So I wrote a
Mm,
case on the Marine Corps. The Marine
yeah.
Corps basically takes young men off the street, not off the street, they selected the selection process,
Yeah.
but then they train them
Yeah.
to be bold. So then I came to started to, and then if you look at historical accounts,
Yeah.
you and I share from our cultural context a very famous, courageous individual named Mahatma Gandhi.
Yes.
I don't know if you knew this, but Mahatma Gandhi was terrified of public speaking early in his life.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And in fact, he had no ambition to be a freedom fighter or do anything. He wanted to be a British person. He went to England to become a
Oh, wow.
barrister. He
Yeah.
trained for law. He learned to walk like an Englishman, talk like an Englishman.
Yes.
And then you see, or you look at Nelson Mandela, or you look at, so you
Yeah.
came to see anecdotally as well as in the research
Mm.
that sure there are initial conditions, kind of your baseline.
Mm.
But some of these people either willed themselves
Mm.
or taught themselves, and the research was backing it up that there is evidence showing that people in very risky professions
Yeah.
could be trained up to be courageous. Now, what's in that training? Is it
Mm.
just simply lecturing you saying be courageous, or there was
Mm.
something else going on in their mental makeup? So that is the unlock.
Yeah. So this
Um,
is a larger point, isn't it? Um, so I was going in a direction that is probably untrue, which is your initial conditions determines you in some way. But what you're saying is that y- not really. I mean, you can train yourself, you can change yourself. So don't be prisoners to your initial conditions in some ways, right? That's what you're
yeah.
saying.
Yes. So I don't have data to back this one up, but I will just share with you. Um, I like a more hopeful message that there is hope for us. If all our life is nature nurture, then there is no hope to do anything different beyond what our initial conditions are. We're pre-programmed, and
Yeah.
off we go. But I'll tell you where I came to fully believe in this idea that we can always change is for about 10 years, I ran a program here at Harvard called the Advanced Management Program, the
Mm.
AMP. It's our senior most leadership program. The company send people for 8 weeks, now 7 weeks.
Yeah.
And these are people who are N minus one. So they're just below
Mm.
CEO. They're on the cusp of turning into senior leaders. And this
Yeah.
became Mr. Ratan Tata did this program, and so did many others.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Um, so they come to campus, they're 52 years old on average. And I thought, okay, they're here to learn, and that's it. But what we advertise to them is this is a transformational experience.
Mm.
It's going to transform how you think about the world, but it will also transform how you think about yourself. Now, when I first came in, I
Mhm.
thought this is marketing PR. Come on, how can you teach an old dog new tricks, as we like to say, right? 52
Yeah.
year old, what is it? It was remarkable to watch. I
Oh,
then
wow.
decided to send out a survey, and I would
Yeah.
ask them, to what degree was this program transformational for you?
Mm.
And the vast, vast majority would
Mm.
give it a perfect score on that dimension.
Mm.
So I think, that's just my anecdotal. There's no scientific evidence. It's not a representative sample. These are very, self-selected opt-in kind of a bias, elite group
But
of
but it's
people.
it's a useful
Yeah.
piece of information, right? So from my bias, I would have come from saying your history sort of pins you down on that spectrum. But what you're saying is that it doesn't really. I mean, if you have an open mind, you can go places. It doesn't matter where you started from, but you could go places. Is what you're saying.
I want to just, this was a quote from a book I read recently. It's a fictional novel.
Yeah.
And this woman writes, "The life I am given is not the one I have to live."
Mm. Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
think it's and if you look at some of these messages, for instance, Winston Churchill said, "Fear is a reaction,
Yeah.
courage is a decision."
Yeah.
Or if you go back to Aristotle and then subsequently all the way to Maya Angelou, they say courage is the master virtue that unlocks all other virtues.
Mm.
And Aristotle actually wrote an essay on explaining what was courage.
Mm.
And so they hovered around this idea that courage is a learned behavior.
Learned behavior. Yeah.
It's accessible to all. Yes, you're 100% right. Some people are very predisposed, fearful people. They
Yeah.
don't want to try anything new, and they're handicapped by that. And
Yeah.
so what I was trying to suggest is that instead of just succumbing to your initial conditions,
mm,
is there a way, scientifically grounded way,
mm.
to methodically work on yourself to really unlock your potential?
Yeah.
Because most of us are living fearful lives. You also need, I would also extrapolate one step further, Gil, to what you just said.
Mm.
Human beings, we are wired to be cowards.
Yes. That's how we
Survival
survive.
instinct
That's how we survive.
is,
Yeah.
it's not fight or flight. We
Yeah.
don't fight, it's flight or freeze.
Flight or freeze. Yeah. Right.
We don't know how to deal with uncertainty, which is not risk, by the way.
Yeah.
Risk and uncertainty are two different conditions,
Yeah.
which a famous economist, Frank Knight, made that distinction.
Mm.
And in the face of uncertainty, it activates this primal human emotion of fear. It's in the amygdala, it's in the reptilian brain, and it's a survival instinct.
Mm.
So we are hardwired. This is in the hardware,
Mm.
not the software. So you have to fight. We have to fight ourselves. Our ancestors, the one who survived, are the ones
Yeah.
who ran,
Yeah.
not the ones who fought.
Yeah.
Right?
So we are
Um,
naturally risk resisting for good reasons,
yes.
for evolutionary reasons. But you make a distinction between risk and uncertainty, which I find very interesting. So I wrote a couple of books, yeah, a couple of books, Sanjay. So in 2009, one is called Decision Options:
Hmm.
The Art and Science of Making Decisions,
Huh.
which is more about environments that are highly uncertain, as you say. So we don't have an ex ante expectation of risk or probability distribution of
Mm.
risk.
Hmm.
This is like pharmaceuticals,
Yeah.
aerospace, high
Yeah.
technology, energy. And we have to sort of pace ourselves in small decisions so that we can sort of adjust ourselves into the future, right? So, because we don't have a real good distribution of outcomes. Um, it is a very difficult thing to practice in life, right? In real life for individuals. I always wondered how individuals think about this.
So first of all, you were
Yeah.
onto something, okay? It was way before others started talking about this in any detailed way. Um, Even the original distinction that Frank Knight made many decades ago between risk and uncertainty is kind of like a lost, forgotten backwater. I
Mm.
think it's a very critical distinction that I think
Yeah.
everybody needs to understand. There was also a recent book a couple of years ago called Radical Uncertainty.
Mm.
Harvard Business Review, in the latest issue, cover story, talks about what they call an uncertainty crisis.
Mm.
We have technological uncertainty, we have regulatory uncertainty, we have geopolitical uncertainty, we have political uncertainty, we have environmental uncertainty, we have health uncertainty, we can go on and on and on,
Yeah.
right? So, and uncertainty, as you and I were discussing, can immobilize us.
Yeah.
Now, your idea, which is to basically tiptoe your way in and
Yeah.
create option value, right? So you create
Yes.
option value, and I'm guessing that's where you were going with it,
That's
right?
right. That's right. Yeah.
Which I think is a very profound idea, actually. Uh, I didn't come at it from a finance perspective. I came at it from an organizational perspective. And there's this gentleman named Carl Weick. Carl Weick introduced this concept called sense making.
Mm.
And sense making was the example he uses was firefighters. When a firefighter goes into a building, they don't rush in without
Yeah.
knowing
Yeah.
what's going on, but they're
Yeah.
not waiting outside either.
Especially the
And he just,
experienced ones don't do it.
yes, exactly. Yeah, they won't be around for too long otherwise. But
Yeah.
what they do is then sense making is you look for cues,
Yeah.
you compare them to your internal database of experiences,
Mm.
you form hypotheses, then you take more steps and you test those hypotheses.
Mm.
You gather more data and you test them again. So you're going through an iterative process of hypothesis generation and testing. So
Mm.
the punchline for him is you act your way into knowing
Yeah. Get more
versus
information. Get more
exactly.
information. Yeah.
And so he's a learning theorist. So he's
Yeah.
putting a learning lens into it, saying that, you take action to know, to learn.
Right.
And the example I use in the book is one of the Fukushima Daini plant
Yeah.
after the nuclear meltdown, and I interviewed the plant manager.
Yeah.
Uh, Mind you, this would have been traumatic because if this plant also had a meltdown, the other one did, the
Yeah.
Daiichi did.
Yeah.
If this one did, it would have been a complete
This is
disaster
the second
because,
second one, little bit away from
yes,
it. Yeah. Yeah.
only 8 miles away.
8 miles away. Yeah. Okay.
And had the same damage because both these plants had 20-foot high boundary walls,
Yeah.
and the tsunami was 55 feet of water.
Mm.
It submerged completely the plant, the cooling system. There was no scenario modeling. What would you do if everything is submerged with 55 feet high water?
Mm.
And so you have no template, no roadmap. Now you can sit tight in the control center,
You have
but
no options, so to speak.
yeah, but you don't know what to do. So how they took small steps out
Yeah.
to gather more data
Yeah.
and find a course of action, and they developed a small steps. So the other metaphor people like to use is what ancient mariners used to do when they didn't know the world. They had no map. They didn't know where America was or India was. So
Mm.
the mariner didn't just say, I'm going to sail right into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean. They
Yeah.
would find land masses and go point to point.
Yeah.
And they would sail for a few days. And if because they had only so much supplies,
Yeah.
so they were willing to sail few days into the open ocean. But if they didn't see land, they would turn back. But if they saw
Yeah.
land, then say, okay, great. Now
Yeah.
let's go to the next step.
Yeah.
So you're navigating your way into uncertainty. And I think
Yeah.
it's a very important point you make.
Yeah. So that's how Homo sapiens went all around the world. I mean, I don't think we went out of Africa saying we're going to conquer Asia. They tried different things. They got some data and they moved slowly. So I want to go into your your book and your multiple chapters here, which I find very interesting, Ranjai. So the first chapter is coping. You say here it's scary enough taking risks, but grappling with situations that are fundamentally uncertain is even more frightening. We can cope by building reassuring narratives about the world that make chaos seem more bearable. Um, yeah, so coping is an important thing. I mean, we've got 8 billion people. Um, I would think a large percentage of them are coping with a lot of different things. Half of them don't have enough food to eat,
Yeah.
um, which is really crazy to think about. And the other half perhaps have diseases because they're eating too much or whatever. I mean, I'm thinking about metabolic syndrome and diabetes that are sort of getting prevalent in India and China. So so we have chaos all around the world. How do we cope with it?
So let me start from the beginning over here. If you
Yeah.
look at humankind, going back to the cave dweller days, how did humankind cope with uncertainty and tragedy and adversity and scarcity? The first way we cope with these situations is we look for a higher power.
Yeah.
From times immemorial, you can go back to ancient times, worship, prayer,
Yeah.
a belief in a higher order, sacrifice,
There's an
ritual.
escape mechanism.
I wouldn't even go that that might offend some people to say it's an escape
Okay.
mechanism, but
Okay.
it was definitely a coping system. It was
Coping.
reassuring.
Okay.
It was reassuring to know that something out there
Yeah.
is there for me,
Yeah.
right? We're looking for reassurance somewhere. That's
Yeah.
one. Then you go to maybe the Renaissance and all, where scientific method comes into play, and now we are saying I can conquer science. But with
Hmm.
data and math, even your podcast scientific sense that
Yes.
in fact, to use our language,
Yeah.
some people believe that you can turn uncertainty into risk. Just get more data, do some Monte Carlo
Yeah.
simulations,
I don't
think
buy
about
that.
it in different
Yeah.
ways. So,
Yeah.
but the idea, the holy grail becomes that maybe I can turn uncertainty into risk,
Oh, yeah. That's an
right?
interesting way to think about it. Yeah, yeah. Right.
Right. So some people even try that. So,
Yes.
barring that, so let's say those are two out there. The other
Yeah.
piece way in which we can cope is create a more positive narrative for ourselves. It's very easy in adverse moments to have a victim narrative and become
Yeah.
passive.
Yes.
How do I create an affirming narrative? So, one of the stories I talk about there is actually a friend of mine's daughter who got a deadly diagnosis that she was not going to make it beyond 16, 17 years old.
Mm,
And she was only 13 when they found out.
mm,
And how her name is Aisha Chowdhury, and how Aisha turned that what could be a completely devastating,
mm,
you know, diagnosis into a positive, affirming narrative that
mm.
I need to make the most of every moment that I have. And
Yeah.
how am I going to have a positive impact on the world and be remembered in this world? And how am I going to leave my legacy?
Yeah.
Right. And I think is an important piece of the puzzle too. So how do we that was coping that how do we create
Mm,
what I said to you in the beginning. Churchill said fear is a reaction, courage is a decision. It
mm.
starts with the positive narrative we build. Even organizations do that, by the way, that you build a positive narrative that we can do it. I've seen
Yeah.
it in sports teams,
Mm,
entrepreneurial ventures.
yeah.
So you build the narrative, a can do, we got it, we can do this,
Mm,
the moonshot idea. We're going to put a man on the moon.
yes. Yeah. So I'm a bit conflicted about this, Sanjay. So I'm just sort of putting it out there. So, religion, as you say, when they came out of African savannah, it sort of gave them a structure to cope, so to speak. I'm just making a statement. I don't know if that's the right statement.
Mhm.
Um, but then religion got its own life. Now we have 8 billion people segmented into 200 countries and 10 different religions, and they fight each other every day as if there are 10 different gods. In some cases, there are hundreds of gods um, out there. And so the coping mechanism Homo sapiens might have garnered early on is now killing us in some ways. What do you think about that?
Um, so what is it's a double-edged sword. One of my other C's, actually, where I might even talk about this,
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about it.
is
Yeah.
conviction.
Conviction. Yeah.
That people will go to extraordinary lengths, even sacrifice themselves when they have a
Mm,
conviction about something.
yeah.
And there's a positive to that because if you deeply believe in something as a startup entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or a leader, or somebody who wants to, a young person trying to make a name for themselves in the world we are in,
Yeah.
building that conviction gives you, I'm going to do it. Or you see Alexei Navalny, the
Yes.
dissident in Russia,
Yeah.
he had strong conviction, which gave him the belief that I have to go back to Russia.
Yeah.
So be it if they arrest me and put me in Siberia, and maybe I'll die. But the option of sitting in Germany is not an option for me.
Mm,
So conviction is a powerful motivator
yeah.
to acting with courage.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it can be turned in a negative way as well,
Yeah.
right? And historically, looking back in time, there are countless examples where people have turned this conviction idea into a negative force where it becomes a cult or it is channeled towards harming other people or
Mm.
towards creating a divisive antagonistic system. So
Sorry.
and
Yeah.
and but people may go to extreme lengths in this context. So
Yeah.
you know so you're right that how we channel human courage. But this is always true for centuries, right? In every war, there were heroes on one side and villains on the other,
Yeah.
depending on which side you asked, right? There is always a portrayal of the heroic and the villainous behavior on opposing sides.
Mm.
Um, so yes, it is a double-edged sword, and something that conviction, belief creates a huge amount of energy and in people, and it has to be tackled responsibly.
Yeah. So conviction and belief. Sometimes I think, Sanjay, no, Ranjay, that it's difficult to put that in context in the sense that when you have conviction and belief, you're not using emerging data. And let me make an argument. And we have a very large number of people who are convinced that world is going left or right. I mean, you can see that in the US even. uh, you don't have to go outside. And when if you show them data, they will say, "Well, no, I'm convinced it's going left or right."
So,
Yeah,
so look, these belief systems or convictions
yeah,
um, come from two sources. One I would call rational.
yeah,
So people are marshaling data on all sides.
yes,
So, and we can
yeah,
selectively use, there's decades of research and Nobel Prizes in economics for biases in how we interpret and use data,
yeah,
right? We seek confirming evidence, we ignore disconfirming evidence, right? There's an anchoring bias where we anchor on an idea we don't want to change, or we don't want to change and update,
yeah,
right? So there's a number of these biases that lead us to selectively look at the data that serves our initial biases.
yeah.
So there's that. And there's plenty of that. There's data being marshaled on
Mm,
all sides to make different arguments in the world.
absolutely, yeah.
But there's a second piece that drives human behavior, and that I would loosely call interpretive,
Mm,
which is where we interpret the world through a lens of meaning,
mm,
of understanding.
yeah,
Now, that meaning and understanding is itself biased, it's driven by our own personal biases and our preconceptions.
mm,
But now we're not dealing with rational, now we're dealing with emotional.
mm,
Now, let me go even deeper. There's a third level of thinking, which is identity based.
yeah,
You see, rational, I can have a debate with you on the data.
mm,
You say this, I say that. We'll argue about the data and we can have a rational conversation.
yeah. And the data is
Emotional
changing. I
already
mean,
gets
it's
harder.
not constant. It's
Yeah.
changing. So
Yes.
it's not like yeah,
But we can argue about the data. We can argue
yeah,
about the assumptions. We can argue about the sample. We can argue about whatever.
yeah,
Emotional gets harder. Now we're
mm,
getting emotional. You might even call it non rational because now it is emotion laden. So the conversation gets clouded. The third level, which is the hardest, is identity, where it is questioning my very being.
mm,
Those conversations are the most deadly. I
mm,
don't think we are in, right now, we are not having rational conversations, nor are we having emotional conversations. We're
yeah,
having identity conversations, which are very tribal in nature,
yeah,
right? It appeals a lot. There's a
mm,
lot of appeal for identity conversation,
yeah.
but
I
it
think
also
I
creates
think Ranjay
massive
that
division.
we are already there in the US. It's mostly identity conversations that we're having right now. I think.
This is a global phenomenon today.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
It's not happening. I think is
Yeah.
somewhere. I think we have been drawn into our own kind of, I would say, tribal mindset where we are
Yeah.
drawn to people like ourselves, and we somehow are no longer able to recognize and value diversity or anything different than ourselves.
Or information, in more generally speaking. So, I mean, we are in a world of conspiracy theories. I didn't want to go there, but I want to get your perspective on this. Um, Both left and right in the US today, they spin up conspiracy theories. And I know both sides. I talk to both of them. And if I ask them, what's the data that you're using to get to this conclusion? neither side could tell me, right? So we are in a world where conspiracy theories have a lot of value for people, um, and it has a lot of negative value for society. So I don't have a solution for it. I'm just
So
making a statement here.
I would use a slightly different phrase than
Yeah,
conspiracy. I think we have multiple narratives people are creating.
yeah,
A narrative is like a story. A narrative
yeah,
is my worldview,
yeah,
and we all and then we look at the world through our own narrative of the world,
yeah,
and we sense make the world through that narrative.
yeah,
So and it operates at a very deep level inside us. It's personal.
mm,
It's me. It's who I am. So I'm so deeply attached to that narrative.
mm.
It's an extension of me. So it
Yes,
becomes part of my very being.
yeah,
And I'm deeply attached to that narrative.
yeah,
And this is something that it's not a new, it has been for centuries, that's why I think it's important to understand that what compels and propels human behavior
mm.
is not just rational utility, calculation, cost benefit analysis.
Yes,
What really activates and motivates us
yeah.
are these narratives we construct for ourselves.
It's a narrative. So in chapter 2, you say here confidence. So you say here science shows that we behave more courageously when we truly believe that we are well equipped to accomplish our goals. To boost your confidence and in turn your boldness, don't just bolster your skills, take additional steps to shift the situation in your favor. So confidence has a lot of value. I've seen this in many sort of business contexts. Um, and if you are, it's going back to the initial condition question here. If your initial conditions really sort of destroy your confidence, you are doubting yourself, you can't really put forward your ideas, then you're sort of stuck, right? So uh, I think so. Let me ask you a loaded question: is there a difference between Asia and the Americas on this dimension?
So, look, I don't have any data to back it up. So, let me first unpack confidence for you. I was very hesitant to write a chapter on confidence because it is a platitude. You're like, Ranjay,
Yeah.
do I have to read a chapter on confidence? I mean, come on. There's nothing to learn. Either you have it or you don't have it, initial conditions, and get on with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I had to understand the nuances beneath confidence. And for that, I read there's a Stanford psychologist named Albert Bandura.
Yeah.
Bandura didn't call it confidence. He actually called it self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy.
Efficacy. And self-efficacy is this belief in yourself,
Yes.
in your own efficacy.
Yeah.
So it's not just that I have the domain knowledge.
Yeah.
Beyond domain knowledge, I also have beneath it a kind of a can-do spirit.
A
I
can-do
got it.
spirit. Yeah. Right.
And people underestimate that. They think that, oh, just by giving somebody domain knowledge, they'll become confident naturally.
Yeah.
No, there is this meta skill of a can-do spirit. So one of the examples I use in the book is of Captain Sullenberger, who landed this United
Yeah.
Airlines flight in the Hudson River.
Yeah.
And they asked him, Katie Couric in the interview asked him, like, what did you know what you had to do? He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm a trained pilot. You have to land the plane with the wings level. You have to
Yeah.
fly above the minimum flying speed, not below
Yeah.
it, but not too fast either. And
Yeah.
you got to land it with the nose slightly up, right? Because the nose will otherwise flip the plane over. And so you don't want to do you want to land the plane level.
Right.
So, and you have to land it near some boats so they could quickly rescue because it was freezing. It was in the wintertime in New York.
Mm.
So she said, yeah, but there was a big if. And he looked at her in the eye and said, I knew I could do it.
Yes.
So that is not pilot skills. That was not like, okay, he's been a pilot for 40 years and he's been an instructor pilot and all that. That is something else. I knew I could do it. Or you look at Navy SEALs,
Yeah,
they're trained to go into the unknown,
yeah,
saying no matter what comes your way, you are so well equipped,
yeah,
you can tackle anything.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting. So Katie also asked him, so when you landed the plane, were you sort of stress-free and relaxed? He said, "No, I I have stuff to do here. It's just a start
Yeah.
of something."
Good recall, actually. She asked him if he prayed, and he jokingly said, I'm presuming somebody in the back was praying for me while I was flying the plane.
Right, right. Yeah.
And
So this goes back into your book in some sense, which is um, it is a process, isn't it? I mean, uh, most good leaders think about things not as an outcome, but as in a process. I think, right? Is that a right way to think about it?
so it's interesting you bring that up. We're getting very Indian over here because in the Indian spiritual tradition, we
Yeah.
teach that in the Bhagavad Gita is that, you focus on the process, not on the outcome. And the whole concept of detachment is that, you're not indifferent, but you're not attached to the outcome.
Yes.
And I think is so some leaders in difficult moments
Hmm.
will say, let's not get confused by the outcome. Let's focus on the process.
Yeah.
This is a very common strategy in sports, by the way, competitive professional sports,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
where you're saying, don't look at the score, just
Yeah.
focus on the play. So I wrote a number of cases on sports coaches as well. And that was a kind of a hallmark idea that you're kind of intensely focused on process.
Yeah.
Um, I have a chapter in the book on calming, which is near
Calm.
the end, right?
Yeah.
And I'll just say a little bit about calm, if
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
may,
Yeah.
because this is relevant here because process is one way to keep calm.
Hmm.
And I found it was interesting what people do and how process keeps you calm. And there's a
Hmm.
body of research on emotional regulation
Hmm.
by this very famous psychologist named Richard Gross. So, what are some ways in which people can stay calm and process? So, the first one is rituals.
Yeah.
Turns out rituals normalize and create routine. So,
Hmm.
they calm your mind down from the chaos of uncertainty around you.
Yeah. You
Um,
get some certainty as to what's
yeah.
going to happen. Yeah.
And I first actually learned this from talking to some Ukrainian commandos I interviewed.
Yeah.
And they said that, oh, a number of the tank unit members in
Yeah.
the morning before they go out on mission, they will put religious symbols on their tank and then they will walk around the tank 3 times clockwise. And then they will do these
Hmm.
rituals are meant to kind of just cool them down. But the one I found most fascinating was the famous singer Adele, who before every major, she's apparently gets stage fright. Believe it or not, she sings to tens of thousands of people. So
Yeah.
before every concert, she takes a picture of Celine Dion and looks at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you see people doing interesting rituals
Yes.
just as a way to cope. Or another one that is not in the book is Katie Ledecky, the famous swimmer. When she
Yeah.
gets nervous, sometimes she does,
Yeah.
she recites her grandmother's name in her head.
Hmm.
Now, that is not ritual. That is what we might call redirecting attention.
Redirecting attention. Yeah.
So you're trying not to think about that situation. So you're saying, I'm going to just keep like a mantra. In
Yeah.
India, we have mantras, So it's interesting how
Yeah.
people have discovered these Eastern traditions as a way to calm the mind.
Yeah.
So whether it is ritual, whether it is redirection, others will do reframing. Roger Federer, Simone Biles.
Yeah.
Others use humor, by the way. In Ukraine, the president has used humor
Hmm.
and he's a comedian by training, so that's different.
Yeah.
So, how people keep calm in what would be otherwise very stressful situations. So you realize that these
Hmm.
people who are courageous are not just born courageous necessarily. They are in somehow instinctively or spontaneously finding ways to resource themselves
Yeah.
so they can push past fear,
Push
become
past.
acquainted with fear,
Yeah.
even befriend fear, or some might even say that they are able to master fear.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sport is a good domain to think about this. So, you and I grew up looking at cricket. I don't know much about soccer, but the cricket players go through this process quite a bit. So, um, some of them say, "I'm just looking for the next run, and when I get that run, I'll think about the next one." So they're basically, thinking, they're not thinking about the outcome. I got to get 300 runs, that's going to be nearly impossible, let's say. But I'm going to take the next one, and then I'm going to the next one after that. And I keep going. At some point, I might get to my. So they're not really thinking about the outcome. Well,
But Gil, even that's very hard. Like, I don't have data to back this up, and you should check the data on this. Is I'm always frustrated when a batter who's doing a great job scores a century,
yeah,
then he stands and waves his bat, and
yes,
then 5 runs later he hits the most ridiculous shot and gets out, and you're like,
yes.
what is going on?
Yeah, that happens too. Yeah,
Right? And so,
yeah,
but it's interesting. I'll tell you a short anecdote on this one. Scotty Scheffler, who's the number one golfer in the world now,
yeah.
somebody interviewed him and asked him, like, what, how did you suddenly, he was among the top players, but he wasn't number one, and suddenly he just broke away.
Mm,
And he said it was 2022. He was playing in the Masters and he was paired up with Tiger Woods. And Tiger Woods, they were on the 12th hole, which is a par three hole,
okay.
and it has a water hazard. And Tiger hit the ball into the water. He took a second ball, he hit that in the water as well.
um,
Tiger got a 10 on that single hole. Okay, one of the highest
well,
scores I think ever.
and he still
In
won.
fact, that no, he didn't. That
Okay.
alone knocked him out of the tournament.
Okay.
But Tiger didn't care.
Yeah.
Well, you know what he did? The next 5 holes he birdied.
Yeah.
So Scotty was watching him and saying, "You just
Uh,
blew the whole tournament.
you cannot win. You cannot
You
win.
can't win." But he's
Yeah.
coming back and birdie after birdie after birdie. He doesn't
Right.
care. He is so focused on the next hole. And that kind
Right.
of laser like focus, I'll share a story which many of your listeners may or may not relate to. If you remember, at one point, Dronacharya, the famous teacher, his
Yeah.
son came to him and said, "Why am I not your favorite student? I'm your son.
Yeah.
Why is Arjuna your favorite student?" And he had
Yeah.
100 students. So the next day he put a bird on a tree and he asked every one of them, "What do you see?" Some said, "I see a branch." Some say, "I see a bird on a branch." Some say that. When Arjun's turn came, what did he say? You would remember that.
I don't quite know this
No?
one. Yeah.
When Arjun's turn came, he said, "I only see the eye of the bird."
Eye of the bird. Okay. Yeah.
So he said that concentration and laser like focus
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
on understanding, not getting confused, not getting distracted, all this is noise. So
Yeah.
if you see, in sports, you see this a lot, but I'll tell you, it happens outside of sports as well. I mean, one of the cases I talk about in the book is about Ernest Shackleton, the South Pole explorer.
Hmm.
He took 28 men down to the South Pole in a ship, and the ship sank. And they
Yeah.
have 3 lifeboats.
Yeah.
And what does he do? They're camping on ice for 9 months before the ship sank. They were camping on ice. He
Yeah.
gave them first a daily routine.
Hmm.
They had to get up in the morning, and every day was a routine. They had tasks to do, there were chores given. Everyone was forced to normalize that. Don't think about the ship is stuck in the ice and it's minus 70 degrees outside, and
Hmm.
we may die and we don't know if the ship will sink or not sink, whatever. How does he get them to focus
Hmm.
on the task? He makes up tasks for them so that they're very task or process focused.
Yeah.
But then he does something else that I call in the book connection for
Connection.
himself.
Yeah. Connection. Yeah.
And
So
that
yeah.
is another piece of the puzzle in this whole story.
Yeah. I mean, it's an important piece here. So behind every great hero stands a team of helpful supporters to build your courage muscles, work on fostering your connections with others, building a squad that can provide you with emotional support, tangible resources, and feedback you need to excel. So, so I've been in a few companies. uh, the company I liked the best was I had a squad, as you say here, and it was the most enjoyable experience that you could ever have. And so, yeah, it's a squad that makes a difference, right?
So once again, I'm here. Let me start with what the stereotype is. You
Yeah.
see, Hollywood movies are wonderful at portraying courage, but they usually portray it as a solo story. Not to bore everybody with Hollywood, but it's usually James Bond or Jason Bourne,
Yeah.
fearless characters operating alone. But then there are occasional exceptions to that. Oceans 10, Oceans 11 are about a team of people and the camaraderie and
Yeah.
how knowing that others have your back
Yeah.
becomes a tremendous energizing force. In most of these characters I saw, we look at them as heroic individuals. So Shackleton, people have written about as the heroic leader.
Yeah.
He had three people in his support squad who gave him support.
Mm.
But then I decided that I can't write a chapter about find support. I actually found some great research on a taxonomy of support.
Yeah.
Turns out there are four different facets of support.
Yeah.
And there is resource support, there is information support, there is moral support, and then there is feedback support. And
Feedback.
the
Yeah.
best illustration of this is actually for venture capitalists with
Mm.
entrepreneurs.
Mm.
Every venture capitalist says, I'm smart money, I'm smart money. They're not smart money. But if you think about who is really smart money, what do? They
Mm.
not only give the entrepreneur money, they provide them valuable information,
Yeah.
they give them moral support, and they give them feedback.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand that as we build our support squad, are we getting the different types of support we need? And by the way, to
Yeah.
get it, you have to learn to give it. Who
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
you supporting? Whose support
Yes.
squad are you on?
Yeah. So the feedback component is very important. So we are running out of time, Ranjay. So, but I want to touch on a few more things. So, chapter 5, you say comprehension, radical uncertainty destabilizes us, to which our natural response is to freeze up. By learning to act our way toward more comprehension and clarity, we can prevent ourselves from becoming stuck and behave more courageously in the moment despite our fears. Yeah, so comprehension is an important characteristic, isn't it? I mean, um, so sometimes let me throw this out to you, Ranjay. You don't have this in your research, but humans have a very limited horizon. I don't know, may if you're lucky, 80 to 110 years, let's say, of
Yeah.
lifespan.
Hmm.
After that, you're gone, and nobody will ever remember you. I would say, um, and so this comprehension that you talk about is part of that, right? I mean, you want to do something, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if most people want to do something, but this understanding that your time is limited is an important phenomenon, isn't it? I mean, I'm taking a slightly different direction just to get your perspective. Yeah.
There's some very interesting research on regret.
Yeah.
And the research, one of the punchline findings is that when people look back at their lives, they have much more regret about inaction than action.
Yeah.
And so when we look back, we say, I should have done that, I could have done that, I wish I had done that, as opposed to action. And I think there's a lesson for all of us there
Yeah.
that our focus should be on action versus inaction.
Yeah.
And I think is but not reckless action either. This is not like go out and do something for the sake of doing something.
Yeah.
I think it's very thoughtful, methodical, but recognize that fear can freeze us.
Fear can freeze
Left
us.
to us, yeah. And I think it's
Yeah.
important. Even the extreme example I use here is of Salman Rushdie, who is
Yeah.
frozen while he's being stabbed,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's an extreme story, but so I think as we look back at our lives, I think there's a reason why people like Aristotle and others, Maya Angelou and others talk about courage as the master virtue because it unlocks in us the potential
Hmm.
to not live fearful lives. By the way, to add to that, in other research on emotions in the workplace, the two most common emotions people experience in the workplace are fear and anger.
Fear and anger. Yeah.
So here we are living lives. I'm not overgeneralizing, but if
Hmm.
fear is a central part of who we are, what we have to deal with in life,
Hmm.
and we need to learn to tame fear, outwit fear, make fear our friend. I think living with the discomfort of fear.
Hmm.
But it starts by first even acknowledging that I'm scared. Even the even to say we're afraid is considered kind of something shameful.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's normal human natural response to say, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And but I think but then the question is, am I willing to take action in spite of my fear?
Yes. Yeah. So I want to finish up with calm. We talked a bit about this. You say here dangerous situations can cause our fears to run wild. Some simple mental strategies can preempt this natural response, calming us and allowing us to behave more boldly. So they say that it's a little bit outside your research, Ranjay, but they say that there are so many heartbeats a human being can have, and um, if you are calm, you probably live longer because your beats per second is down to the 70s. But if you're already always sort of not there, you're always non-calm, your heart is beating so fast that you're going to die a lot faster. That's what
Well,
science tells
I
us.
think that science is a little suspect science because then there is no benefit of exercise because you're already getting your cardiac
Well,
rhythm
yeah,
up.
that's true. But that is a
And
very tactical, you go up and then you go down type thing. But if you are not calm, you have 24 hours of not being calm, and that's a long
so
time
look,
frame. Yeah,
we don't. I won't debate that one with you, but I'll just add one thing more about calm. What does calm do for us?
yeah,
It creates in us the objectivity and possibility
yeah,
of looking at our situation with clarity, not from a place of fear.
right.
Fear clouds judgment. We know that. Fear clouds judgment because it is operating in the amygdala. It is also hijacking the prefrontal cortex.
Yeah,
It clouds our thinking,
yeah,
right? We become defensive. We become reactive. We're unable to think of proactive options. We're
hmm.
unable to imagine possibility. We succumb to a narrative of victimhood and why is this happening to me and what can I do to avoid it and how do I duck and hide and run? What can I do?
They're sort of frozen.
Yeah, you're frozen or you're hiding or running the
Yeah,
other way. Proactive people are like, what can I do?
yeah,
How am I going to take this on? And by the way, I have my support squad to back me up. I
hmm.
also know that I can go into this small steps at a time. I have that can do mindset that I can get it done, right?
Hmm.
And I have a personal narrative that I'm a person who does to like to get things done,
Hmm.
right? And I have strategies to stay calm in the eye of the storm. So,
So let
these
me
are resourcing people. These are ways in which people can resource themselves
right.
into taking action in these kind of uncertain times.
Yeah, so let me ask you a loaded question, Ranju, and we'll finish up with this. So, um, do you think societies like India and China, I don't have any bias around this, where there's a community, where there is some sort of support structure, um, could do better compared to, say, the US? For instance, if you have money, you have a good life here. I mean, if you don't have a lot of money, I mean, it's not that good a life. So is there sort of I mean, I'm a free market capitalist, so let me put that out there. But um, is there a sort of a structural system, societal, cultural aspect to what you're
I,
trying to do? No.
so look, I'm sure there is, but no one
Yeah.
has studied it. And I'm thinking of an example because there was a very famous writer named Francis Fukuyama
Yeah.
who wrote a book about trust.
Mm,
And he showed that different societies have different levels of baseline trust, interpersonal trust,
mm,
and how that affects significant economic activity. Because when there is low trust, you have high transaction costs.
yeah.
It's constant verification, re-verification, and so and so and so forth, right?
Right.
That's one way to think about it. But
Mm.
um, you know, uh, y- I don't think anybody's done a study like that of courage. That is there kind of are there societal forces that impact and shape the level of courage
Yeah.
that in which people are encouraged or discouraged to behave boldly? It's a
Yeah.
great question. I don't really have any data or evidence to really kind of back it up, but it's an open question. That are there societies that actually systematically
Mm,
nurture and encourage courageous behavior, or are they micro communities
yeah.
where you see more of this? Like in India, we always said the Gurkha was the best soldier, the Gurkha community. So you can imagine seeing micro communities where courage and valor are,
Mm,
glorified, recognized, celebrated.
yeah.
And maybe that those social forces then encourage people to behave more boldly.
Mm.
It's an absolutely fair question, and I don't have an answer to that one.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to create a country, uh, Ranjai. So out of the 200, we make or 205 or 206, what we have, 207th country where it's it's open to think about things, and that country could do quite well,
Yeah.
actually.
I would even start smaller. I would even say, what if you look in a community? What if you
Yeah.
live in a community where, as an educator, I've written this book because my hope is that my students and others who might choose to read it
Yeah.
will feel empowered to make courage part of their personal repertoire
Yeah.
and hopefully be able to live what I consider more complete lives, more fulfilled lives, life with less regret. And, if you read the forward by the Dalai Lama, His
Yeah.
Holiness
I
is
saw that.
written
Yeah.
over there,
Yeah.
kind of how courage is an inner journey and
Yeah.
courage leads to a more complete life.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at it from a place of not intellect, but from wisdom,
Hmm.
wise people who really were thinking more deeply about the human condition
Hmm.
recognize the importance of courage in facing up. I mean, the whole story of the Bhagavad Gita with
Yeah.
Arjuna standing there and suddenly saying, I can't do this,
Yeah.
right, is an act of saying how did he then have to build up his courage
Hmm.
to do something? Something for all of us to think about. So,
Excellent. Excellent, Jay. Yeah. Thanks so much for spending time with me.
my pleasure, Gil. Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Thanks for the very insightful questions. Really
Oh,
got me to think hard. Thank you.
thank you.